Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Stampin' Chat Live. It's Friday afternoon and we're here again. As always, I can't believe Friday's come around again. The weeks go by so quickly and I can never quite believe that it's time to talk to you again. So I'm just going to check my iPad and see if I can see what you can see. Hopefully everything will be okay. Let's just turn the volume down so you don't get me twice. And please let me know if you can see and hear me okay. Right, let's have a look. Okay, it looks like I'm live. Fantastic. So I can see Mary's here. Hello, Mary. I hope you don't have internet issues today. Fingers crossed. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm not using my separate microphone today because that's caused nothing but trouble the last few weeks, having been fine for a while again. And so, yeah, I thought rather than spend ages trying to get it to work, I'm just going to give up and speak to you using my phone microphone and try very hard not to move my head around too much so that the sound is consistent for you. So let me know how it's sounding. Okay. Right, I always have to have something to say to fill this time, so I'll give you my New Forest weather report for today. Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Mary. Wonderful. Mary says hello to everyone, and she says that everything is working okay at the moment. That is good to know. And yes, keeping everything crossed for you, Mary. So my New Forest weather report is that it started off very grey. We had torrential rain first thing, and it's quite blowy, but the rain cleared away. And although there is a bit of cloud in the sky, we've got beautiful blue sky in between the clouds and sunshine this afternoon, which always makes me feel happy. So I don't know what the weather's like with you. Let me know. I can guess what it's like with you, Mary, because you're not very far away from me. Good afternoon, Hazel. Thank you for joining us. And Hazel says good afternoon to everyone. I don't know where you are, Hazel, but what's the weather like where you are? I hope it's dry. I think it's supposed to be dry for the weekend, so let's hope so. I've got an enormous list of things to get done for the weekend, although I must admit they're all indoors, so it doesn't really matter what the weather does, fortunately. But I'd much rather look out the window at sunshine than I would at rain. Hazel, you're in Plymouth. How lovely. It's a bit sunny but cold. Is it cold? Okay, it's not too bad here, but I expect you've probably got a fair old bit of wind there, haven't you, being so close to the sea? I'm pretty close to the sea here, but I know parts of Plymouth can be quite exposed. So, yeah, lovely part of the world though, Devon. I do love it. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about things to catch up on. Whether you're watching this today, on Facebook Live, whether you're watching it on YouTube, hopefully this will be useful information. So dates for things, my monthly card class and my card class by post for March. The last day to book those is today. So I'll be closing bookings at 5 o'clock. That's so I can get everything ready. My Fancy Fold cards class for March. The class is on the 21st of March and bookings for that close next Friday. I think I forgot to tell you that the card class for March, the standard card class, is running on the 10th of March. My all-day spring extravaganza, that class is running on the 9th of April and bookings for that close again a week today, next Friday, which is the 11th. And finally, a piece of news, I'm going to be taking a break from my craft room, actually for the best part of 3 weeks. So I'll be here live next Friday, but after that, my next live will be on the 11th of March. So I have set up some reminders on my Facebook page to tell you that there won't be a live, but please don't come and join me again after next Friday until the 11th of March. So there will be one next Friday, which is the 11th of February, and then it won't be until the 11th of March, which sounds like I'm going away for longer than I actually am. But that's because of when I get back, or when I'm back crafting, I should say. So yes, so that is all the announcements, I think, other than to remind you that Celebration is continuing until the end of February. So you can shop and get free goodies from the celebration brochure. You can really spend and get an extra free stamp set on top of your goodies. Or you can join, which is actually the best deal of all. Come and join my friendly team. I've got some really lovely people in my team. We craft together, we chat together, we have made close friends because everybody is so nice. We share projects. It's a really nice thing to do. On top of all that, you get a discount on everything you buy. Would you like 20% off all your Stampin' Up goodies? You would? You need to join my team. If you'd like to get some free things as well, then how about you tick off £130 worth of your wish list, but you only pay £99 for it and free shipping on top. Yeah, join my team. If you'd like to know more, let me know, or you can go to my website and you can actually join up there, and there's some more information there too. But by all means, get in touch with me. In a minute, when I put the camera down to my desk, I've got my website there as well as my email address, so you can jot those down if you need them. So Hazel's saying it's a bit windy where she is. I bet it is, Hazel. Okay, so I'm going to cover you over, and I'm going to turn the camera down to my desk, and then we will get going on some crafts. I need to try and remember to talk to you so that you know I haven't gone away. Now I'm really hoping everything is going to work today. I've had 2 weeks of not the best time technologically, and I've also been making far too many human errors. So there's been technological problems and there have been human errors as well. Speaking of which, I've forgotten to change my settings. Let's just do that. Otherwise, everything's going to be back to front. Okay, I think I've changed that setting. I really wish they'd bring that button back that goes blue when it's altered. That made life so much easier. Okay, right, let's take that off and see how things are. No doubt I'll have to do a little bit of tweaking. Okay, so let's move that grid paper down a little bit. Okay, and I don't know if I move that back, if that helps. You've got a little bit of my lap, but never mind, that's pretty unavoidable. Oh, and you've got a lead. Let's move the lead out of the way. That's better, I think. Okay. Get it back in focus. Righto. Okay. So that's my website, sallybowman.stampinup.net. My email, handmadeathome@hotmail.co.uk. So if you need to get in touch with me, that's how to do it. I'm just going to drink some water. I'm going to talk to you about today's crafting. Okay, let me put that way out of the way so that I don't end up knocking it over. So I thought today I would talk to you about the layering masks. Now, they are in the new spring mini catalogue on page 65. So let me find them and show you in here. Then you know what we're talking about. So here we go. These are the layering masks here. And there are a few samples here, actually not that one, that's for something else on the page. Here we go, those. So these two cards are made with the layering masks, and I'm actually going to show you how they work. I always look at these and I think masks or stencils. Actually, I think I would call these stencils because we're applying ink through the holes, through the design. And I always think of a mask as something that covers something up and you work around it. But anyway, what's in a name? Whether you call them stencils or whether you call them masks, you can have an awful lot of fun with them. And I'm also just going to be reminding you that we also have some in the annual catalogue as well. So let me show you, I've got 3 projects to share with you, but I'm just going to show you the actual techniques I use. I'm not going to actually make the project, but just to give you some idea of what you might be able to make. Let's pop this card down first of all. So this is a C6 card, so that gives you some idea of the scale of the butterflies. They're quite a generous size. And I'll lift that up as well and try and show you some detail. I'm still not very good at getting this in the right place, so I'm going to have to wait for my iPad to catch up. And I have to try and keep it in focus as well. There we go. All right, so I'm going to show you how I created those. The two butterflies are created with the layering masks, and then the background is created with something else. So let's get started. First of all, let me show you the masks. I've just put a sheet of white card down here so that I can show you what you get in the pack. So that's the little pack they come in. You will see from the gold glitter on there that I didn't pay for these. I got these free because I'm a demonstrator. So I mark all my free things with a little piece of sparkly tape. So it makes me happy when I play with something that I didn't have to pay for. All right, so this pack of masks or stencils has 3 background stencils in it. I can't get all 3 on my white card. So that's those 2. And let me pop the other one down there. That's the other one. So these will give you an all-over design, and they're not necessarily designed to be layered. However, there are 3 others which are definitely designed to be layered. One with butterflies, and yes, there's a little flower on there as well. And then, let me see if I can fit them on like that actually. 2 with flowers. There we go. And you might be thinking, okay, so far so good, but what on earth do I do with those? Well, I will show you. Let me pull out the ones that I'm going to need for now. Put those others aside. And then I'm also going to show you what I used for the background. If I bring this one back in, for the background on this, I used this one, which looks like leaves to me. You can go either way up, of course. You can do it that way too. I used it up that way. And that one is from one of the packs of masks which are in the annual catalogue. So this is the basic pattern masks. And as well as this lovely leafy design, there's this all over spotty one. There's this sort of, I don't know, Baroque one. Actually, that's not unlike the pattern on my top today. And I love this one too, this tree one. So you can use all of these with all kinds of media. You can sponge ink through them. You can use the ink blending brushes to brush ink through them, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. You can spritz colour through them. You can use a fine pen, like the fine tip of a Stampin' Right marker, to draw through the apertures. You can use the embossing paste to give you a raised design. There's so much you can do with these, but I'm just going to focus on ink blending today. So thank you, Hazel. Thank you for saying you like that. I'm just checking the comments. Hi, Sandy. Nice to have you. Looked like you had a good time in London. And Kay's here. Hi, Kay. Kay says good afternoon to everyone, as does Sandy. Sandy says it's very cold, but she's home. I think we must be quite lucky down here where we are. It's not that cold today at all. I haven't even had a jumper on today. I've just been in like a long sleeved top, so it's actually quite pleasant here. Maybe the cold is on its way. I don't know which way the wind's blowing. All right, so let me move that out of the way, and I'm going to just bring in some plain white card. This is our basic white card, which I'm going to work on. A couple of ink pads. I'm going to use the same colours I used for my butterflies, and a couple of the ink blending brushes. These are in the annual catalogue if you haven't found them yet. They are absolutely fantastic for applying ink. I've always sponged ink on and enjoyed that as a technique, but these make it much easier. I have one for each colour family, and I just stick a little dot of an appropriate colour on. So this is my yellows and this is my oranges, and it doesn't matter which orange I'm using, I'll use that one, or which yellow. You can wash them under the tap if you need to. I just use a little bit of tepid water and some mild washing up water or hand soap, and that will just loosen all the ink and get all the loose ink out of the bristles. They will stain, but that won't come off on your project, so you can wash them every so often if you think they need it, and just let them air dry. So that's those. Right, so I've got my card here, I've got my butterfly stencil. Now the first thing to tell you is the other thing you're going to need is some tape of some sort. Now I have what could be the world's largest collection of washi tape, so I tend to use washi tape because if I use lots of washi tape, then that means I can buy lots of washi tape. So I do have a bit of an addiction to washi tape. However, if you don't have washi tape, which if you didn't know is a paper low-tack decorative tape, I think it's probably made all over the world now, but originally comes from Japan. I believe the Japanese word for paper is washi, although don't quote me on that, but I seem to remember that's the case. So you either want some washi tape or you need some low-tack masking tape or painter's tape. If I'm going to use that, then the brand I use is called Frog, like the amphibian, Frog tape. It's not the cheapest, but it's good, and by and large it does not peel off the surface of your card. So that's really important because we're going to use this, it's going to attach itself to the card, and we don't then want to pull it off and pull off the surface of our card after we've just spent ages making a beautiful design on it. So do test your tape on your card, and I always press the tape down as little as I need to hold things in place. I don't spend ages with my bone folder really burnishing it down, just to help make sure that it's going to come off without pulling back layers of my card. All right, so I'm going to get 2 of these larger butterflies on here. So I'll show you. This one I did with the 2 sections of this stencil, and this one I used this open butterfly, and then I used one of the other masks or stencils that were in the pack for the decoration. So I'm going to show you both of those. So the first thing to do is tape down your card. The key to a really nice crisp result is that nothing moves. So I've just got a bit of washi tape on that. Then I'm going to lay my butterfly over there. So the one I'm focused on at the moment is this open butterfly. So I'm going to take the stencil down to my desk, or effectively my grid paper. My grid paper is blue tacked to my desk, which I always do for filming because that just keeps it where I need it. And because these tools are fabulous, but they're not tiny, you know, they're quite big across here, so it's very easy for me to catch the next motif and get some ink through that, which I don't want. On my card here, I did actually cut the butterflies out, so that wouldn't have mattered. But if this was my card front, I wouldn't want to accidentally ink something else. So I'm also going to tape over that section of the mask. And I'm not pressing this down very hard. I just need those holes covered up. And also down here, because I don't want those to come through. Now this seems a bit laborious probably, but honestly it's worth it. I didn't think I needed to do this the first time I did it. I didn't bother, and then I got ink where I didn't want it. So do as I say, not as I did. And I'm just going to cough, excuse me. All right, so I'm going to start off with Daffodil Delight Ink. I've got my yellow ink blending brush, and actually I just need to stretch over to my other table and grab a clear block. I won't be a moment. Okay, you don't have to have a clear block, but I do like to use one when I'm ink blending because it helps me to distribute the ink evenly in the bristles. So first of all, I'm just going to rub my blending brush on the ink pad. Now I tend to go up and down mostly, but you can go round and round, it doesn't matter. And then I'm just going to work it on here round and round in a circle, and that just helps make sure that I don't have any large blobs of ink on there. If I'm not sure, I can always just rub it on here, and it's very faint, but you can see that there are no bright yellow patches jumping out at you, so that ink is well distributed. And then I'm just going to work in a circular motion over my mask. I'm going to start moving my hand in the air before I hit the paper, because that helps avoid getting a blob when I first touch the paper. And I'm just going to keep going until that ink is the colour I want. The more I brush on the ink and the more ink I use, the more intense that yellow will be. And if I move out of the way, you can see that one side of that butterfly is very yellow. Now when I get to little places like the antennae or the bottom of the body there, I don't know if I can hook it up there. You can see I've just got little bits of the mask there. And if I'm going to brush up that way, the chances are I'm going to catch those in the bristles, and then I'm going to end up losing the shape of the antennae because my ink will be going underneath the mask, and the same here. So if you have any bits of stencil like these, what you want to do is work up towards the areas of the stencil. I don't think I'm explaining that very well, but watch the way that my fingers are moving. So if you've got points here that point upwards, work upwards. If you've got bits here that come downwards, work downwards. This one goes to the left, so I'm going to work to the left. This one goes to the right, I'll work towards the right when I get there with my brush. So I'll try and show you that as well, and I'm just going to get a little bit more ink on here. All right, so I'm just going to work down over those antennae like that, and then here over the body I'm going to work up, and then I'm going to do this side, and I'm going to make sure when I get to this bit that I work towards the right. So over to the left, work towards the right, trying each time to keep moving in the air first before I actually hit the card. And then I'm just going to have a look at it and try and make sure that the intensity of the colour is the same on both halves of the butterfly. And I think that's pretty even. Okay, so now I'm going to take this mask off. And there is my butterfly in all his glory. Now I could stencil lots of these as a background, that would be beautiful, maybe paler than that, and then I could add a cutout butterfly on top for my card. So that's one idea that's just kind of popped into my head. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some detail with the other layer of this mask. So let me peel off that tape. Now bear in mind that your tape may not have absorbed any ink that's landed on it from your brush. So watch if your fingers are getting inky that you don't end up spreading that ink onto your project. You can reuse the tape, but because it's almost certainly inky, I'm not going to. I tend to use fresh tape. Just move that piece out of the way. I haven't moved this piece of tape because I don't need to move my card yet. So now I'm going to lay my detail stencil over the top like that, and then tape that in place. I'm going to come quite near the edge of the stencil, so I'm also going to put a piece across the bottom there. And in fact, I'm going to use this other, this is ever such low tack tape, this one, but it's wider, so it will just protect a little bit more of that card. And I'm going to put another piece of it at the top here, or two pieces maybe, that's too long, just so I don't go through the other part of that stencil. There we are. All right, and now I'm going to bring in my orange ink pad, which is Mango Melody. Change my brush to my orange brush. I've got another clear block. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, there's a bright orange blob there, so my ink is not blended well in the brush, and if I had gone straight to my paper I'd have got a big blob there. So let's try again, that's better. Right, so now I'm going to stencil in exactly the same way, move my brush in the air, and then come on to my project. Now these little bits here are actually only attached up here. They're loose all the way round, so just be quite gentle. They do move a little bit as you brush on the ink, and what you don't want to do is hook them right up and end up brushing ink underneath them, because ideally you just want your ink to be over the top, so you'll get areas which are masked. All right, so I think I've done all that. I think I've done all these little tiny dots. The exciting part is when you peel off the tape. And I've pressed that down so hard I've actually pulled a little bit of my card off there. It doesn't matter because this is a butterfly I'm going to cut out, but that's what I was talking about watching for. And there is my butterfly. Hopefully that's in focus. I always have to wait for my iPad to catch up. There we go. So that is just like this butterfly here, but I added much more of the Mango Melody ink, so I've got a much more vibrant result there. So for this one I did exactly the same for the solid outline of the butterfly. So let me come back with my yellow and do that. Try not to stick this down too firmly. Firmly enough, but not too firmly. Bring back my butterfly. And put a little bit more tape there. Just to block up those gaps. Alright, and now I'm going to come back in with my yellow ink, my yellow brush. So I'm working in the right direction for these little loose pointy bits. If you've got any questions, do type them in the comments and I will try and answer them. Right, so I think that's a pretty good outline. Now I'm going to leave this one in place because I only want my next pattern to go on top of the butterfly shape. So I now have this one which looks like lines of daisies. This is from the same pack, from the Layering Flowers and Butterflies, and I'm going to pop this over the top, and I'm going to get one of the verticals on the flower straight along the butterfly body there, just to make sure that the pattern stays straight. And then I'm going to tape this down. So I've got two masks down now. I have the solid butterfly and I also have the daisies. So you can layer together any masks from any of the packs like this. So I'm now going to bring in my orange ink and my orange brush. And I'm just going to go over the top in exactly the same way. This is actually a bit easier because the second layer is easier because you're not worrying about hooking up those little bits of stencil on the butterfly, so I can go in any direction I like. The most exciting bit is always when you take these off, because you never quite know what you've got until you lift the stencils. And there we are. So I now have a butterfly with flowers. I do really like that. I think it's so pretty. And of course you can use any kind of colour combinations. You can go really bright like I have, you can go very subtle. So that then is how I made the 2 butterflies on my card. This one is done with the 2 butterfly masks, the solid one and the detail, and this is done with the solid mask and one of the other masks in the pack. Sandy said, wow. It is a bit of a wow, isn't it, Sandy? I think it's a really exciting technique. Okay, now I'm not going to need these again, so I'm not going to fiddle around and peel all the tape off, but what I do with these next is I peel the tape off and then I just run them under the tap. I just use the cold tap. Because I've used our classic inks, they are water-based, and all the extra ink on the stencil will just run off, and then you can either let them air dry or you can pop them between a couple of pieces of kitchen roll or old towel or something like that if you want to use them straight away, and just dry them off and then they're good to go again. So Mary likes the butterfly with the flowers. Yeah, oh, and thank you, Hazel. Yeah, Sandy's just said, how do you clean the stencils? I hadn't even seen that comment, Sandy. And Hazel is helpfully answering, thank you. Yeah, they just rinse off really, really easily. You don't even need to rub them really for the ink. And the ink doesn't really dry on them, where it's a water-based ink and these are a plasticky material. So I'm just going to put those out of the way and then wash them when I've finished. All right, what I will do is I'm just going to quickly wipe these clear blocks so that I can use them again in a moment. And as far as the ink blending brushes are concerned, I just rub them on my grid paper, or if you've got any kind of scrap paper at work, just until there's no more ink coming off the bristles, and then I just store them away for next time. Okay, a little bit of tidying up. All right, so that's one card. Let me show you the next one, which I'm going to make using the flower masks in that set. I do really like this. I think it's so pretty. I'll lift that up for you. Don't know how close I can get without losing the focus. But there is a lot of detail on this. The inking is really pretty. Okay, so for this one I have used these 2 masks. So this one has the group of flowers, and there is one which will give you your first image, if you like, with some detail, and then this one adds more detail to it. And then I've used this one with some of the leaves. Now these leaves are all curved at the base. There are different shapes and size of curves, and this one's got a little point so that you can fit them in and around your flowers. So you just pick the one that's going to fit the best. And there are also a couple of extra flowers on here, and then there was one on the butterflies stencil as well, which I now can't reach because I put it out of the way because it was all inky. And so you've got 1, 2, 3 solid flowers, and then 1, 2 plus a third on the butterfly stencil. So you've got some extra flowers as well as this grouping of flowers. Thank you, Hazel. Yeah, this is my favourite of the 3 cards I've made to share with you today. I haven't done it yet, but I can also see this done as a kind of a vintage card, maybe with some, maybe with Blushing Bride, which is a slightly brownish pink, and Crumb Cake, and on vanilla card with some lace, and yeah, very pretty, almost like a Victorian vintage card. So I'm going to show you how to make the flower cluster. Again, very easy and straightforward. So as before, I'm going to tape down my card so that doesn't move. And And this one I find I have to think about a little bit more as to which one to do first. So it's the one with the biggest open areas that I'm going to do first. So I'm going to do it this way round. Just going to tilt it a little bit just because that pleases my eye. So then I'm going to fix that down. And I put as little tape onto my card as I can. But sometimes it's unavoidable and you do need to tape it to your card. A little bit at the top. And then I'm just going to cover over these two flowers so that I don't end up inking through onto my card. There we go. And I've barely pressed that down, it's just enough to protect the paper. My two pinks are Petal Pink, which I left in the sun and it's taken the colour out of the box, and Flirty Flamingo. So this is my pinks brush, which I'll use for both those colours. So I'm going to start off with Petal Pink. I start with the palest shade and then work to a darker one. So again, pick up some ink, blend it out on a clear block, and there we go. Now it's a very pale colour, Petal Pink. But I'm hoping that you can see it, and if not, I'm sure you will once I lift up the mask. With this one, there aren't any of those little pieces that want to sort of get caught in the bristles, so it's very easy to stencil, but I am slightly concerned that I'm going to go over onto my white card there, so I'm just going to add a little bit of tape on the edge. There we are. Just to protect the edge of the card and give me a nice clean result. Alright, so that's my first image. Oh, and actually before I do that, let me bring back my project. I coloured the two little centres of those sort of daisy type flowers with crumb cake, so I'm just going to do that. Because this is the detail stencil, and although that one has a little hole in the middle, this one it's covered over, so if I want this flower to have a dark centre, which I do, or even that one, sorry, then I have to do that now. And I've just got a cotton bud here, because it's just got a tiny end to it, so I can just pick up some ink and then just dab it through, just being careful that it doesn't escape into any of those other areas. I could tape them off, but I decided not to. So I'm just dabbing up and down with that. The ink blending brush and even a sponge dauber just isn't quite fine enough for this, but this seems to work okay. There we are. Right, now I'm going to take the stencil off. So that's where we are so far with that one, and now this is the one for the detail, so I'm just going to lay this over the top, and I find that the easiest way to get it lined up is to look at this little hole here. So if I get that hole in the center there, and then oops, tape getting stuck, and then I just need to tweak the rest of it. So you probably can't see, and you may even have my head in the way, but I can see, let me lift that again, these little white lines around the petals I can see through this mask. And so I'm just lining up the outline of the stencil so that those white lines are covered up. And it takes a little bit of fiddling, but it's not really that difficult. And that looks about it. So now I'm going to add some more tape to hold this one in place, and then I'll be adding my contrast ink, which is Flirty Flamingo, to finish my flower off. So let's close up Petal Pink, bring in Flirty Flamingo, and I'll just rub off any remaining Petal Pink, but I don't think there was really very much on there. I've got a clean block here, and then I'm just going to go over the top again. And there we go, that should have done it. And there we are. So there's my two-tone flower. That's a really long time lag to dip today. I can't see if I've got this where you can see it until my iPad catches up, but I think I have. And then just to fit some leaves on there, just to show you how that works. So this is this other stencil or mask, and we've got these little leaves with lobes, or we've got these plainer leaves, and you can put any of them anywhere. It's just a case of looking at this curve and seeing where this will fit. So that will fit actually quite nicely there. I am going to add a little bit of tape, even though it's only a small bit of inking. Again, I'm just going to cover up the nearby areas. And this is mint macaron ink, and somewhere I have a blending brush for greens. Let me find that. Oh, it's here, it's on the table all along. So I'll pick up some mint macaron and then just brush it through there. So that's really quick, it's such a tiny area. And that's my leaves. We'll add some more down here, shall we? Let's use that one. And there we go. And I used that one. I didn't cover over that flower, and look, let me show you what I've done. That is why you need to cover all your apertures. Can you see there? I've got some green that actually ended up coming through this part of the stencil. So I missed taping that one off, and I've got some green on there, which won't matter. I can always put, I don't know, a bow or a one of those little gold bumblebees or something on there. It's still usable, but it's avoidable. So, so do as I say, not as I do. I seem to say that to you every week. All right, so let me bring back the finished card again. So these inks are much brighter as they dry, because I put quite a lot of ink on there. They're still drying. They will fade out a little bit. And then I just finished that card off. The white I die cut with the Stitched So Sweetly dies, and then I die cut some mint macaron card with the Scalloped Contours dies, which is these. Little bit of seam binding ribbon. Actually, that's a bit of a cheat, that one. I haven't wrapped it round and tied it. I wanted to do a triple bow on it, and it's much easier to tie that, at least for me, around my fingers and have it as a separate bow rather than wrap the ribbon around and then try and do it. So this piece here is just a piece of ribbon which I've secured on the front underneath here and then behind the green, so it doesn't come all the way across, and then I just made a bow and then stuck that on with a glue dot. So that's a bit of a cheat on there. Yeah, absolutely, Hazel. Yeah, one of those brass butterflies would be perfect on there. That's a good idea. Right, let me move these inky masks out of the way. I'm just going to drink some water. I can feel my throat getting dry. All right, now let me show you the third card for today, which is this one. More of a masculine feel, maybe. Pick it up and show you in a little bit more detail. Okay, so for the background on this, I've used another one of the masks from that same pack, which is this one. It's got kind of trailing vines on it. And this one needs a little bit more thought as you're using it, but it works in exactly the same way. Everything else on here, those other leaf die cuts, are all from the what are they called? The Tropical Layers dies. So that's the Artfully Layered bundle. The thank you is from the same stamp set. And then I used one of the, I can never remember these, tailor-made tags dies to cut my tag with on the back. So that's everything else that's in there, some linen thread. But let me show you some tips for using this particular mask. Now with the others, they don't move very much. Once you've got them attached to your work surface and your card, they're not going to move. But if I lay this one down and then start to brush over it, can you see all these individual pieces are moving? And that's because you've got lots of individual strips because of the kind of stencil it is. So I'm just going to show you how to get around all that movement. And it was a bit of trial and error, but I found a way that works really well. And actually I'm not going to tape this down because I'm going to stencil from top to bottom. So in fact I'm going to use a larger piece of tape, and I'm just taping down the stencil because I want the whole of the card to be inked, not just part of it. And if I tape my card down, then I'll have a white bit where the tape is. Now you can get round that by having a larger piece of card than you need, but I've just got one. I'm just going to make it just a card front size. So I'm just going to tape the stencil down. So this is taped to my grid paper, but it's not taped. There's no tape sticking to the white card. I'm using long pieces of tape so that it's held down firmly, and that will keep the card in place even though the card is not taped to my work surface. And then if I try and stencil this, even with it all being taped down, there's a lot of movement in there, and I'm not going to get a crisp design. So what I discovered was if I put pieces of tape across like that at intervals, 2 or 3 of them, let's do 3, that really reduces the movement. So if I'm now going to ink this section, those pieces are not moving at all. And then as I work down, I'll remove the strips of tape and I'll add one at the top, and I can gradually work in the gap. So I hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, I'm going to do it so you'll see what I mean. I've just put my ink pad on the floor. Let me grab that. All right. So I'm going to use soft succulent ink here. So I've got my greens brush, I've got a clear block, and I'm just going to work on this top section here. So move my brush in the air, and then while it's moving, bring it to the card. And I'm going to try and go almost as far as this tape, but not quite as far, simply because not going quite as far as the tape just gives me a smoother transition between one section and the next's inking. So then I'm going to move this piece of tape. Although this is a detailed stencil, the material is quite tough, so as long as I'm reasonably careful, it's not going to tear. So now I'm going to put this just up there. Now sometimes there's so much ink on the stencil that the same piece of tape won't stick down because it's slightly less tacky because I've reused it, but that one I think is going to stay. And what I've done is made sure that just under that tape, so my next section, the top of it, is the end of the first section's inking, so I can see some ink here in the gap, but it's very faint because I tried to stop. And that hopefully will mean that there won't be a really obvious transition between the first section I ink and the second section I ink. And you can see that the stencil or the mask is staying in place really quite nicely. All right, so now I'm going to remove this tape. And if it's sticky enough, I'm going to pop it above where I just stopped inking. I'm hoping this is making sense to you. If it's not, shout. More ink on my brush. And again, I've got a little bit of the ink from the last section showing at the top of the section I'm now working on, and it's faint because I only laid down a little bit to try and make sure I don't end up with a sort of a stripe going across where I finish. And then finally the bottom section. So I've put some tape to hold those bits down, and again I can see a little bit of the green here. It's quite faint because I was tailing off at that point, which should mean that I can blend this section quite evenly. I mean, we'll see how good it is in a minute when I take off the tape, but hopefully that will work. Okay. And there we are. Now I have perhaps got just a little bit of, let me hold that up so you can see, a little bit of stripiness across there. To be honest, that is almost certainly going to be hidden when I add all the detail. But if it bothers you, you can put it back underneath, match up the pattern, and just go over those bits again. So you just need to match it up with a stencil, and then you can re-ink to blur those bits. But I don't think that would bother me at all because I'm going to add lots over the top. And for me, that works much better with this stencil. Though it does seem a little bit of a faff with all the tape, it's so much easier than having all these bits here moving and trying not to get them to move and trying to avoid getting a blurry outline. So there we are. Let me show you all 3 cards again. I'm going to just shut up my ink pad before I put my arm in it. Alright, so we started out with the butterflies. So this is the 2 layers which are in the mask pack, and this one is the solid layer from the mask pack, and then the daisy stencil, which is in the same pack but is not specifically designed to work with the butterflies. And then this one in the background is from the basics mask pack, which is in the annual catalogue. The butterflies are in the spring, not spring, we used to call it the spring, what do we call it now? The January to June mini catalogue. That's where you'll find the butterflies. So in the same pack as the butterflies is this one with the flowers and the leaves. And you've got this group of flowers in there, then you've got 3 additional separate flowers and lots of different leaves to choose from. And then my final project, this background, I don't know if these are lianas or ferns or what they are, but the leaves anyway in the background here are another one of those masks from the butterflies and flowers layering decorative masks, which is a bit of a mouthful. I don't think I told you how much they were. I ought to do that really, oughtn't I? So that pack of masks is £9.25, so that's for 6 masks. So you get you get 1 with butterflies on, 2 with flowers, 1 with this design, 1 with the daisy design, and then this one as well, which I haven't used today. I think they're brilliant. They're so versatile. Okay, so I'm going to bring you back up to me now. Let's just cover you over in the hope that, oops, I won't make you giddy. Ooh, I'm not sure if I pressed the button or not, which is the problem with it not going blue. Why would somebody take away your ability to see if you've turned a switch or not? Looks like that's okay, thank goodness for that. Okay, I did touch it. I'm not upside down. I've done that plenty of times before. Reappeared upside down. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. I love playing with inky techniques. It's one of my favourite things to do, and I hope I've inspired you to maybe have a go with masks and stencils yourself. These layering ones are particularly lovely because they are designed to work one on top of each other. But you can make your own masks. They won't last as long, but you can die cut shapes from card and use those as well, I call them stencils. Use them as stencils or masks, whichever you call them. But these are brilliant. They're so durable, they're lovely quality, and just rinse them under the tap and they're ready to go again, which is really nice. So remember to book for the March card class and the March card class by post by the end of today, 5 o'clock today. Remember to book for the March Fancy Fold cards class and the April all-day extravaganza by next Friday. Remember to order your Flowering Fields Sweet Sampler, which I forgot to mention earlier, by the 25th of February. And next week, which is the 11th of February, I will be back here live, and that will be the last one before I take a bit of a break. And then the one after that will be March the 11th. But next week I'm going to be here. And what shall I do? I know what I'm going to do next week. I'm going to be using the beautiful On the Horizon paper. I've got quite a lot of it in my craft room, and I've been dying to use it. I've only played a little bit with it, but I'm going to bring some ideas for using that with you next week. So it'll mostly be simple stamping next week. Sometimes you don't need to do very much to create a really beautiful card, but there will be some die cutting in there as well. So I'll hope very much to see you at 2 o'clock next Friday. I'm just checking the last comments in case anyone's asked any questions. Thank you, Hazel. I'm so pleased you like the cards. Lovely, Al. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us, even if you only saw the end, but at least you know what I've been doing, and you'll be able to watch the replay. You're very welcome, Mary, and Sandy says bye-bye to everyone. I'm glad you enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed this, please like or love and share it. If you hit that share button, it helps Facebook know that you think it's worth other people watching, and it gets me seen by people that might not know that I'm here doing this every Friday otherwise. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, then do subscribe to my channel. If you hit the bell button, you'll get a little notification that tells you every time I upload a new video, so you won't miss them. But you don't even have to do that. Just click the subscribe button, and that really, again, helps YouTube see that I'm producing things that people like to watch. So that really helps me get seen by more people. So have a lovely weekend, whatever you're doing. I hope the weather stays dry and not too cold, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.